Greetings, Acolytes. Today's topic will be my take on why I think writers don't write gods properly. Be it monotheistic or polytheistic, few writers properly capture the essence and scale of what a god actually is. Some examples of this would be the warp gods of 40k, and every anime god who ever gets killed by a main character in Season 2. So let's start by talking about what's wrong with the examples above. I'm going to do 40k chaos gods first, but it's not anything I haven't talked about before. The chaos gods of 40k aren't really gods. They pick sides, and while they have reflections of the material world, their influence is very limited without mortal intervention on their behalf. Not to mention that they need more power to survive, which goes against an all-powerful being who controls all or part of reality. For anime gods, I could talk forever about their issues. There's several of the same god with overlapping domains, their powers are rather lackluster, and they have almost no control over their respective domain. The amount of war gods who get their shit pushed in is frankly absurd and not really worth talking about. Just look up any isekai anime with a full pantheon. To me, a full god is an all-powerful immortal being with either a domain or absolute authority over a specific part of reality. Or, if it's a monotheistic setting, all that but with all of reality. A common thing I see is that gods cannot directly affect sentient life like humans, and I think that's fine. But it does bring an issue to the concept of race gods like Lolth in D&D or Cain in 40k. If a god is the god of something specific, then they should have a large amount of control over them. And while gods might not control their minds, their bodies are entirely an option. Honestly though, Lolth makes a decent goddess in this regard, given that she makes all of the driders, and that's not a fun process. Another issue I have in a lot of settings is that people can become gods with enough worship or power like D&D. The issue is that if a god is an immortal being who is a part of the fundamentals of reality, then the god will have always existed, as they are a core part of reality itself. As such, a being cannot become a god as it is widely recognized, or as I believe them to properly be. The concept that a god's power can wax and wane based on belief, worship, and how active their domain is isn't really a problem. It's that such things make them killable or replaceable. To me, gods stay in their lane because that's what their existence is tied to. It's like removing a fish from water and expecting it to survive. In my mind, for a god to be a part of another domain besides their own. Mixed domain is another thing. That's more like magic is used for battle, so both magic and war gods get something, unless a new battle magic god being made, which is fine. To me, a proper god is one that is neutral, which is something you'll notice across a lot of my settings if you know me. Nature and reality are neither inherently good nor evil, and while it can be chaotic and predictable, or lawful in D&D terms, they can have champions, prophets, and grant miracles, but it should be to the most devoted, and not favoring good or evil inherently in either direction. Sure, a god of healing is more likely to help good people, but the line between medicine and poison is very thin. A god of the earth can cause earthquakes to swap entire cities and make the lands fertile and rich to help, and a god of fire can provide warmth and safety or burn your house down. Anything is possible within their realm, both good and evil. So while death gods will likely be used by bad people, it doesn't have to be. Respect for the dead and grave tending could be its own worship, and maybe an effective one too if the god wishes for a change of pace. That's another thing, gods having personalities. I think that gods as characters should have personality, but a god is an otherworldly entity whose motives are beyond our understanding. A god's plan should never be evident to those under them. But that doesn't mean that they can't have likes, dislikes, and all the other things that come with characters. However, I personally find it better if they rarely interact with their followers directly, granting them boons maybe, or giving them a little guidance. But a personal relationship feels like it takes away from the mystique and otherworldliness of a god. Now I want to talk about the gods of a few different specific settings to try and get my point across with how other settings write theirs. Back to 40k with the true gods, the Catan. They're 40k's best representation of true gods. However, they also had some rather sadistic personalities, which is more evil than neutral. However, the Catan that made the flare virus as a result of his death is a decent take on the death of a god. Their presence can still be felt regardless of whether they're alive or not. Truth from Full Metal Alchemist is a wonderfully written god in my opinion. He barely shows up, shows no preference even if he does delight in people's achievements. He is both antagonistic and helpful to Edward throughout the series. There's no power scaling to him, no mastery of his to beat. Because he's truth, he is the world itself given a face, one that is undefined and blank and yet full of expression. Truth is the kind of god I believe to be most effective and actually worthy of the title compared to most other settings gods. D&D is another big inspiration for me here because of its alignment system, domain classification, and defined points of its divinity. I do like the domains thing, but I feel like it gets overly complicated. Multiple domains for each god, racial gods, alignments for each type, and so much more. While it's nice to have options to a certain point, it feels too cluttered. Not to mention that mortals can become gods with or without divine help, and vice versa. However, when the god of gods makes the other gods mortal, it kind of makes sense since that literally is his whole thing. Now that I'm done complaining, I should probably offer some alternatives or solutions of some kind. After all, without that it's just a video about complaining, and I think the internet has seen enough of those. So let's find some solutions. First and easiest, don't call them gods. Find another word that fits your described setting better, or use your own. A celestial, divine, or primordial being would be other words that could carry similar weight without the connotations or expectations of a true god. Most so-called gods feel more like the angels from the Bible rather than actual just gods. By extension, this also provides an issue to demons, who are usually depicted as opposed to the gods. I recommend finding some other name for them too because of the connotations, expectations, and so on. The other thing would be to try and stick to what I suggested before, gods being more aloof, otherworldly, neutral, and most importantly, unbeatable. Gods cannot be beat at their own thing, that's the point of a god. If I see one more trash anime MC or Mary Sue OC kill a god, I'm actually going to lose my mind. That thing that they killed doesn't even put up a fight. It's not a god. But my OC was born from the combined power of two other gods in this sacred ritual on the 5th moon of the 3030. I don't give a shit. You want a power fantasy or are just too lazy to come up with something interesting? Where's the struggle, the intrigue, the parental issues of such an unholy matrimony? Not to mention that gods can't really have kids if they're aspects of reality itself. I can't go fuck a hole in the ground and create an earth demigod. Divinely blessed with godlike powers is one thing, the literal child of a god is another, and I think it's pretty shit as a story point. Overall though, I think you get my point by now. A true god is not like anything we really see in fiction often, and I'm here complaining about it because I've seen too many shitty animes and bland OCs. If you have any other ideas as to what a god should be, let me know in the comment section below. I do love hearing your feedback about how insane I am. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking or subscribing, as your support goes a long way to helping me make these videos. Links to my Twitter, public Discord server, Etsy store page, and TikTok are all down there as well, if you want to come see more of me. Alongside my Twitch, where I stream several times a week at twitch.tv/BrotherCenterX. I also have a new series coming called Cursecraft, the story of a modded Minecraft SMP hosted by yours truly and played with other VTubers, where the players must find a way to either end the eternal night or fight to keep its dominance over the world. Feel free to check it out on its release on Twitch this Friday, October 10th at 7 PM EST, or after the fact when I upload the VOD on YouTube this weekend. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and take care out there.